Should you play single length irons? Lots of people have that question these days, or at least they're considering it. I discussed this topic in a chapter in more detail in this book. I'll cover the basics, the big points in this video. You should also know, or if you have an interest, there is a private Facebook page that anyone can join, and you can see the name of it, Playing with One Length Irons. And a lot of people post deals and they talk about their experience with it. Well, for me, I started messing around with my iron lengths back in 1998. So this is my current set of clubs that I play with, my one iron golf single length irons. But back in 1998, I started cutting down my long irons. I realized that, well, as everyone does, that the longer the iron gets, the more difficult it is to hit. So I decided I'll cut them down. So I started messing with this when Bryson DeChambeau was just 5 years old. Now you can see what's interesting too is so this is 3 iron, this is sand, gap, pitch, and 9. They were all the same length. So that set of clubs, I didn't do anything. This is just how the club guy made it. And then here's your 8, pretty close, and here's 7 iron. And then, so you can see I cut down I only have 3 here, but I have actually a 1 iron, 2 with this group that I cut down to all be the same size because it just made sense. Now the problem, of course, is when you do this, it changes the swing weight because the heads of these irons weigh much more than, say, the 231. So yeah, I had to add lead tape. Wasn't that accurate. I can tell you that with this set of clubs that you see here, my best score in recent years was 74. Best score with the single length iron, 74, and my best score with these variable length irons, also 74. So it's not like it made the big difference for me. I just like these better. They just suit me better. Now people will often say, well, how do you play with them? Well, this is the closest I came to a hole-in-one. Landed it here. It's 145-yard par 3. Landed it here, jumped up here, and then spun back and curled around. Now people will use it and say, oh, I play great with it. I play sometimes good, sometimes not. And the reason why, of course, is because of my swing is inconsistent. So this is comparing, as you can see, my current single length set with a variable length set. And you can see really there's not that big of a deal. All that you do is you essentially take and this would be a 3 iron, this would be sand wedge, and pretty much halfway between is where my current single length irons are. I like these a lot better than the ones that I cut down because the swing weight for my irons feel a lot better. Now a lot of people can't hit 3s and 4s and they get hybrids, but I can tell you, at least my experience, is that when the 3, 4 irons are shorter, much easier to hit. I have no problems hitting 3 irons and 4 irons. I don't need to swing a hybrid because these work just fine for me. One of the things that I can say though is that the shorter irons up to about, for me, so this is going to be gap, sand, not gap, lob, gap, lob, sand, gap, pitch. With these, I tend to choke down a little bit. That's really it, but not always. It all depends upon the shot. So I really like this. I also like these thick grips, but you can see this was from back in the 90s. So I bought a bunch of clubs back in the 90s because maybe the club will help help me when, of course, it was my crappy swing that was the problem, as everyone really understands. So I didn't buy a new set of clubs for over 20 years. The last time I bought a set of clubs was in the late 90s. That would be, I had probably 3 sets during the 90s. And so I waited until 2021 to get this single length iron set. So that's why I figured, yeah, I'm kind of due, I'll just get a new set. So I went single length. But you can see back then the grips that I went with were thick. I always like thicker grips. So I really like the fact that you can get Jumbo Max thick grips. So Bryson DeChambeau helped to popularize these, obviously, but many players play with these. So you can go to Jumbo Max is the name of this company. I really like their grips, and I also like the 1 iron golf single length irons. The reason why is because made in America. The owner can speak with you. You can email them. You get 30 days. If you don't like, you can send them back. You just got to pay for shipping, and then you get your money back. So it's a great deal, which I would suggest trying if you have an interest. But as I said before, I have not scored better with these clubs yet because, well, it's my swing. I've scored the same. So what is the biggest issue that I think that we need to work on? Well, you can see chapter 14 in my book is the single length iron chapter, but this is the issue that is most pressing for all of us. Pros are really the only ones who can set up to the ball in this fashion, because in order to swing down this downswing plane line, you got to get your body out of the way. Why do you have to get your body out of the way? Because if you straighten out your arms so the club and your arms are just one line, you could be up to 6 inches or more into the ground if you were to just simply swing down that line being this close. So you got to get your body out of the way. Professionals can do this, some good amateurs. The vast majority of us cannot do that. Some pros and elite amateurs do what I call professional Quasimodo. The majority of us do some version of this. I do too. And once I realized that I was doing this, I figured out what to do. You can do this right now. So here would be the downswing plane line. This would be your professional setup. All the way down to the far right is what I think is probably the best way to go. Set up the distance from the ball with your arm and club straight out. Now, that works for me. I'm probably between D and E. So you need to figure out where you are so that you do not stand up during impact. So get a video done of yourself and get it from behind and from front and put a line over your head and see if your head rises above this line as you swing down. I have videos on my Amateur Golfer's Dilemma YouTube channel that go over people standing too close to the ball. Some people stand up during the backswing and then go tippy toes during the downswing. Complete disaster. So what you want to do is figure out your distance from the ball that allows you to not stand up or go into what is commonly called early extension. It's really very, very simple and uncomplicated. So I do this, plus I have the single length irons, and I still haven't gotten better than a 74 with those irons because I'm working on other things. But I really like my single length irons. It was probably the best iron purchase that I made for me. They feel so much better. So if these couple of topics were of interest to you, the book itself might be as well, and you can go and you can do the look inside, and it's obviously very reasonably priced. So check it out if you have an interest.